we have been asking, has your legislator signed? And as you are penning his signature on the paper that is already seeking to also really have these 4 backbench commissioners impeached, definitely that's something also really we are yet looking out forward to. And now we are seeing Sechikubo and the group meet the required number of signatures also to have the censor motion against the Matthias Impuga group also really be censored in there, and now they have the numbers which is required also really for them to have the matter being included, that is on the order paper, which we also really following up on. And remember, as per now, Parliament has yet been suspended by the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Anita Among, over the increasing also really anti-graft protests also in the country. It means already we shall be seeing Parliament returning on the 30th also already of this month. But for now, we are yet also not having the sittings for this week also already, which got cancelled in there. Now, what does that mean? It means that's already the matter, or now we have to wait more longer in there. And that's already something at the end of the day, which I really need to let you already know of the viewer, also to be in the know of what is happening in there. And remember, talking about the corruption in Parliament, we have seen anti-protests already going, anti-corruption protests already going on across the country, where Arua City has not been spared. And when we talk about Arua City, yesterday we did see heavy deployment in Arua City, which was aiming to curb the anti-graft protests, where a group of young people who had planned to also move from wherever they are coming from to also move, that is the city hall, to express their grievances and also express their discrepancies, and something which I feel could have also been allowed also, but yesterday we did see security saying they were not informed. That is a reason as to why they did not actually allow the activity to go on. And we did see police also coming out to confirm that the deployment is as a result because the young people did not also inform them as of their movement. That's to move to the city council, and that's where we did see heavy deployment of both the UPDF and the military. And I was able to also speak to that military also spokesperson, that is Edwin Mawanda, captain, who was also able to inform us that the beefing up of the security, that's where we did see UPDF deployment is as a result to beef up, that is the police force. That's something we did see yesterday, and the young people were able to also express to us their concerns and their demands, and that is something which we did see happening. But I must inform you, there was heavy deployment at the entrances and the exits also to the city administration offices in also Arua City here, where they had to be checked properly to also identify who you are and where you're going to. And if you had unclear information, trust me, you wouldn't also be allowed. That's to also to enter what we call the city offices in there. And police, Central Police Station was also as well beefed up with security. And that is where I want to say, if at all you had no proper identification, trust me, crossing the gate wouldn't be easy for you. And that is something we didn't see yesterday happening. And according to RCC Charles Chogor, we are going to be seeing this continuing. That's also to help also the police and also other agencies to curb what we call the anti-graft protests in the city. And that's also not where we did see that only. We were able to also witness a traffic patrol cars moving. It means intelligence was on alert, and that is something also we see yesterday, where the protest also that was planned to be yesterday, because in other places it was supposed to be on 23rd, where a group of youths also planned to move. That is the parliament also in there, and something which we did see has been also dealt with. And yesterday the activities entered day 3, where we were able to also see scores arrested in there. In Arua City, we were having rumors that one person was being arrested, but also we did see police and also other security agencies coming out to deny that there was no arrest made in there. For now, let's connect to also really see what exactly happened in Arua City as a result of the heavy deployment and the anti-graft protests also that didn't go on yesterday.
For the record, I want to make it very clear that we did not organize demonstrations in this town today. What we organized for was a press conference to air out our grievances and our anger against corruption, which is our constitutional mandate, which is our democratic rights as citizens of this country. You cannot subject us to keep quiet and not to air our grievances, and because we have a right to do so, we have a call to do so. And to the police, this morning we saw deployment on all the roads of this town. We saw deployment on the offices of the city. But we want to tell them the corruption that we are fighting for, the corruption that we are here addressing people about, also affects them more or more than even us that we are here. So we are fighting for them rather than fighting them. We want to urge them, plus the members of public that we are not rioters, we are not protesters, we are only people who are calling for our rights to be respected. And our rights to be respected also includes making leaders accountable for their actions. Make leaders accountable for their actions, for the monies they get, for the taxes we pay. And that is why we are here today, to tell them that enough is enough, corruption must end in this country. Thank you.
Ms. Bashir Abdul Hakim, a lawyer within Arua City. We have seen that within the country there are scandals, there are so many protests from different parts of the country, ranging from eastern, central, western, and now in Arua City. Corruption has become a topic of the day. We have seen how the country has been bleeding for all those years because of this same corruption, right from the president itself into the parliament and moving to other departments such as the police and the hospitals. It is true that our generation is faced with a lot of issues, of which corruption is the main agenda. We know that in Uganda we need development, we need good health services and so many other things. But due to corruption we are seeing a deficiency in the services that we are getting from all the departments. As said earlier on, we joined the country and everyone in saying that let's say no to corruption, and we need a corruption-free Uganda so that our future generation can benefit from these protests. Thank you so much.
Colleagues, my name is Abdul Majid Shami. I'm a disgruntled youth. The reason why we are holding this press conference today, and we're also joining the protest against the fight of corruption, most especially the Parliament of Uganda. Corruption affects equally all of us. The effects of corruption are long term. The reason why we are fighting against corruption is that even the money we pay through our taxes, the donations, even part of the money that is being rooted is from the loans that we borrow every year. And there's no accountability for that money. We spend a lot of money on this Parliament of Uganda. Almost every year we lose 11 trillion Ugandan shillings, 11 trillion Ugandan shillings to corruption only. 11 trillion can actually turn our economy from a third world economy to a middle income status within only 2 years. It is totally sad for us people from West Nile that even the office of the Speaker and office of Deputy Speaker and the commissioners, they are funded more than an entire region. The West Nile region gets less than 25 billion annually, and the office of the Speaker, Vice Speaker, and even the commissioners earn more than an entire region. And how many are they? They are not even more than 10 people earning, having benefits more than an entire region. Which region are we talking about? The region even has a refugee population of over 500,000 refugees, not even the citizens of Uganda. And which tarmac roads do we have? Only the highway from Kampala to Araba, it's only a highway, and only the tarmac places in the urban areas. Are we going to sit down and accept a few people to steal what we work for every day? The little money we make, part of it is taxed. And what does it do? It is used to buy SUVs, vehicles. The Speaker alone uses five vehicles in her convoy. The husband uses 4 vehicles in her convoy. Same to the Deputy Speaker. They even use choppers. Yet for us, a distance from Nebi to Arua is 3 hours. Yet, in actual sense, we are supposed to use only 30 minutes or 1 hour to here. And people should know that the fight against corruption, we are not looking for political seats. How many are we? We are more than 1 million. Are we all going to be politicians just because we are fighting corruption? No. We are fighting for our better future. We are youth, we are less than 30 years old. If we accept 11 trillion to be lost annually to corruption, we shall be paying a debt that even our grandchildren will continue to be paying. So I urge everyone in Uganda to join us peacefully to fight against corruption. And even the security forces should know that even this corruption affects them more. Look at where they sleep. Look where they stay. With that salary they get, is it enough for them to fund medical bills? Is it enough for them to buy good food for their children? Is it enough for them to pay for their fees? And for them, they come with anger thinking that we are fighting them. We are not fighting them. We are not fighting the security forces, police, or another type of people. We are not fighting them in any other way. We are fighting for their rights. We are fighting for our rights as Ugandans. And
that some disgruntled youth, some idle youth were planning to march to Arua City offices, demonstrating their annoyance out of corruption in the country. And for us as security, we did not take that for granted. For us, we prepared ourselves. I mobilized as chairman security, my security teams for a meeting, because marching is not the way for sorting out issues. Uganda as a country is one of the countries that is well governed in the whole world. So there are structures where you can relay, where you can dialogue to send your grievances. We are not going to tolerate, I want to make this one categorically clear, we are not going to tolerate anybody, anyone who is going to stabilize the peace we have now got here in Arua City.
Basically made on preventive measures. Actually, there are preventive measures to prevent any eventuality that could happen in the city. But the truth is, we have been getting information circulating on social media that youths of Arua City are also planning to march to Council Hall so as to join their counterparts who were supposed to have marched to Parliament sometime back this week, and that for them they are doing theirs today on 25th, whereby they are going to march from town to the Council Hall. So as police, we didn't get information on that. You know, demonstrations are supposed to be guided. They are to be guided, and the area police is to be informed about it, but we were not officially informed on that. We saw the information on social media. So against that background, we have made deployments to ensure that such a kind of movement should not take place in Arua City, because there was no prior information given to security. It was just on social media, and so the deployments are on just to prevent any eventuality from happening. Yes. Only consult the people who arrested and get details before I can make official statement on that. But if it is all about these suspected demonstrations here in Arua City, truly we have not got information about it, and that's why our officers are deployed to prevent any form of unorganized movement within the town center. And then personally, I've just talked to the youth leaders. I've talked to the youth leaders of Arua City, and they are telling me that they are not aware of such a kind of organization in the city. They are not aware of it, and so we believe maybe it was just some people who sat in secret places to do some work on social media, to send the threatening messages to the communities, trying to incite the community through social media. So on the ground, the situation is calm, as you've seen. People are moving about with their businesses. There is nothing. And we really urge our people not to dwell on violence, because where there is violence all the time, normal activities will be affected. Economic activities will get affected. And as you know, Arua City is a business center. It's a business hub. So let's not indulge anyhowly in activities that may affect normal businesses within Arua City. Yes.
All right, that is also the information we also did get yesterday in relation to what we call the anti-corruption protests that are ongoing in the country. And in Arua City, we are able to also see heavy deployment. And is it right for the security to do that deployment? That is also where you as the viewer could be having the answers or opinions on. Feel free to drop it on our comment section, where we are going to be also checking through that comment in there. But according to information from police and other security agencies, they were not also really informed, as you had earlier on. They were not informed, so they couldn't allow also really any activity of that sort to go on, and that's why they will be continuing with also really the deployment for at least 1 week or more days in there. And that is something we didn't see happening, and we are yet following up on. For now, we are going to be running for yet another short commercial break, the first one for this hour, and when we bounce back, we shall be continuing from there. My name is Salish Majid. Stay tuned as we bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here. 28 finalists, one crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. True Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Matimba, the popular Abe Kabad, and Jackie Chandiru. The show will broadcast live exclusively on Makula Chika on Star Times at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and U Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Knowing that you are still with us, and we do not take it lightly, and we always take it for, we not take it for granted, and we are always appreciative of you being part of the KOKOLIRIKO live show. Today being the final edition for this week, I must say the vibe is so much high because we are getting into the weekend, and you as the viewer as much as well, I believe, is also really getting very, very much highly prepared. That is for the weekend in there. But we are saying we must enjoy the weekend with a lot of precautions. We must be also really in the know, and we must avoid one issue, that is of overspending and over-enjoying, because over-enjoyments can usually be bad, and that's also really a reason as to why I really want to inform you this early morning that also the extension, also the request also for the extension of the promotion to also register motorcycles, that's at half price for Western Sub-Region, will be ongoing, and that is also for another 3 months. More details will be coming later on, but I must inform you because we are still seeing so many numberless motorcycles on our roads, and that is also something which I feel we must also really learn from as West Nilers. In this protest, we are seeing also really issues also really being raised in relation to the killings, but how do we avoid all those? It's also really something which I feel is very, very much important for us to also really understand and also really build on as we get to move on with the show. And now, earlier on, we were talking about the anti-graft protests as something also really which I feel has been ongoing across the country, but how do we make sure that this does not also really negatively implicate our economies in there, because as West Nile sub-region, we are at a strategic location bordering to also really giant nations of DRC and South Sudan, which are actually amongst the greatest consumers of our products in there. And that is also something which I feel as a rural city, we shouldn't also really maybe destabilize the country and also the state nation at. And that's something also really which at the end of the day, I really need to let you know of as we get move on with the show. But I must inform you that in a rural city, it was peaceful, and we were able to see the deployments also really carried on across the most strategic places in the city. And that is something we did see yesterday, and today I believe the same will also already be going out. And now His Excellency Yoweri Museveni has come out to also already appreciate and laud security for foiling the anti-graft protest, and that's something which we are seeing on the paper this morning, where President Yoweri Museveni has hailed the security forces for foiling the anti-graft protest, which kicked off on Tuesday. And by yesterday, we did see also the heavy deployments across the entire country, where we are seeing also these riots going on, and we were able to solely see some people bundled into the cars. And that is something which we are saying, much as we are not also really encouraging the protest, but we must also really give respect in terms of really how we are arresting these people here, because I was able to see really a mother was a woman also really who was able to be bundled in the car, and she was almost stripped naked. But these things also really paint a negative image of how our security also really handles, that is the criminals, or what we call the suspects. But that is something also really at the end of the day, as we are praising security, we must also really tell them to also really improve on that in terms of handling the citizens and also really each and everybody out in there. And in his X platform, formerly known as Twitter, a lengthy post, Museveni was not only upload the security forces for foiling the demos, but also thank the citizens for avoiding take part in the protests also in there. And that is something we did see yesterday, where Museveni said, a protest are orchestrated by foreign elements, further reminding them that those that participated in them are not Ugandans, and also neo-colony also in there, and cannot allow such also to go on in the country in there, because we did see the president also really coming out to also really tag these also really activities to, first of all, the people around, more so those who are the foreigners, the foreign influence, the foreign powers who want to destabilize the country, who do not want to see peace in this country. And how true is this statement? And do you think the statement also is right, or do you think it's wrong? Definitely, I must say foreign influence also may be there, because some people think that these people who are doing protests are sometimes funded, because I was able to also really see some people saying, if at all we have to be paid, definitely I would also engage in that. But we are saying these are things we must also condemn. If at all we have grievances, we must make sure we use the right channels. How are the what exactly are the right channels? If I'm talking maybe briefly about also the right channels, somebody could be interested in understanding, I must tell you, you can be able to move to police and report that so and so is engaging in corruption, and also the anti-corruption activists also, and the groups which are there. We have so many institutions that are there to deal with corruption. We have the IG, we have the anti-corruption also, coalition also in there, plus many others that are all there to also deal with this corruption vice that we are talking about in this country. But how do we make sure that this does not also really affect the economy in there is something also somebody could be interested in understanding. And the arrest also being made, also condemned by human rights groups and the legal fraternity also in there. And last week, police said they would not allow such protests in the city, citing potential disruptions to the public order. And Museveni also said in the state of national address that was on Saturday, he warned Uganda solely against participating in the protests on grounds that they will sabotage also the business and security in the country, and say those who are to engage in this activity are stepping on fire. That is something we did see yesterday, and now we are leaving that also in there. But now we are seeing also really the president saying the fight against corruption is in his hands, and that's something also really which we are seeing on the report this morning, where President Museveni has expressed commitment also really to ending corruption in Uganda, saying the fight is entirely in his hands. And the president already was reacting to anti-corruption protests led by youth also really, and also activists on Tuesday, where Mr. Museveni also said they would also not discuss the protests in detail next week, and assured Ugandans also that he will always act whenever there is evidence that that someone is corrupt. And that is something also where I now want to remind you, if at all you are seeing somebody in corruption scandals, also somebody asking for bribes from you, feel free to also report such to police and also the other agencies in there, so that they can be able to be arrested in there. And last week police said they will not allow any such of this activity, citing potential disruptions to public order. And now that's where we are seeing people being arrested and others also being taken to court. But yesterday we were able to see some also really being granted bail in there. And Mr. Museveni also in State of Nation address on Saturday warned Ugandans, and that's something we did see yesterday. And now he has said the fight is entirely in his hands, and that's also really where we need now to support him in also really doing this business in there. And he also condemned the holding of anti-corruption demonstrations in heavily crowded areas of Kampala, saying the protesters should have considered less crowded areas and also less busy days like Sundays. And that is something we did see happening in there. Meanwhile, President Museveni tasked the head of the State House and Investors Protection Unit, that is Colonel Edith Nakalema, to organize a peaceful anti-corruption march to Kololo ceremonial grounds. That is only once maintenance of the works is completed in there. And that is something also which we are seeing, where we did also see the same Colonel also meeting some leaders of the anti-corruption activists. More so they used to also have a dialogue with them in there. But really, how do we make sure that these people's demands are met? Because these people have made so many demands, among which also include that is the reduction into the size of the parliament, and also the resignation of the Speaker of Parliament for also involvement in corruption scandals. And they also already made also so many demands, and also where we did see this also coming out with about 7 key demands. And that is something which we are yet following up on. And on Thursday, that is also where Museveni said some protesters had been established, also have been funded by the foreign agents to destabilize Uganda in there. And that is something also which he said wouldn't be tolerated also in the country in there. And that is one thing also I feel as also we need to also let know on. And what do you think about the statement? The fight against corruption is in my hands. Definitely you as the viewer can be able to share your thoughts and opinions, which we shall be able to slowly read through later on. But as we get to move on with the show, so many issues continue to happen in the country. But of course the biggest being the anti-graft protests also that are moving across the country. And now we are seeing it also moving in the other parts, where we did see it starting from Kampala, where a group of disgruntled youths planned, that is to move also really to a parliament also in there. And that's also something we did see also them arrested. And now we are seeing also activists who were arrested during press briefing have now been granted bail. Is another story that we are seeing on the papers morning, where 3 civil society activists apprehended by security at press conference in Kampala on Wednesday have now been granted bail at the City Council Hall. Abigail Kalenda, Dennis Pato, and Ruth Nalonkuma we are also arrested while also preparing to address the media at Hotel Eliana in Ntinda in Kampala in there. But now they have been also been granted bail, and the trio faces charges of holding unlawful assembly under Section 61 and also 62 of the Penal Code Act. And it is alleged that also the 3, along with other conducted themselves in a manner that caused what we call reasonable fear of breach of fear in there. And that is where they were arrested, but now they have also been granted bail in there. The 3 activists followed the detention of 53 other individuals who participated in the anti-corruption also protests on Tuesday in there. Now that's something we did see, and these individuals we are charged with common nuisance at Buganda Road under Nakawa Chief Magistrate, and remanded to Luzira also prison until 30th of July. That's all in there. That's also where they will be now brought before the courts on August 5th and August 6th in there. And that is something also which we did see happening. And on Tuesday, a segment of Uganda's Generation Zoomers, abbreviated as the Gen Zs, also demonstrated against the corruption plaguing Parliament and the country in there. And several young people attempting to march to Parliament in Kampala were arrested by a team of joint security officials, among whom include the military and police, plus other intelligence officers and men in also plainclothes uniforms. And that's something we did see happening in there. And among those apprehended, we have former Rubaga South MP candidate and activist Habib Wembo and comedian Solomon Samuel Okanya, alias Sami, in there. And these people have been arrested, but now they have been granted bail. And that is something also really which I feel I need to let you know of as the viewer this morning, because we did see these people being arrested, and somebody could be also asking where did they go next. But I must inform you that now they are being granted bail. It means that they will have to report to court to also answer to their charges. It means that they are still not yet also really safe. They have to continue answering their charges and also their allegations already which have also been being put against them. And that is something also already which I feel I need to let you know of as the viewer as we get to move on with the show this morning. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome you who is also just joining us. And this is the KOKOLIRIKO live show. In case you're just watching it for the very first time, it could be your very first time to watch West Nile TV on channel 477 on StarTimes, and also on our socials. We are saying this is the KOKOLIRIKO live show that comes your ways every Mondays to Fridays, and this is actually the show also that will be keeping you informed, and an informed person is always one who makes informed decisions. And for you to have that information, definitely each and every mornings you must also keep it locked with West Nile TV on KOKOLIRIKO live show that is there for you. But as we get moving on in the show, remember this is also the way we let you know of the issues happening in the corridors of current affairs. We also let you know of issues also of socio-economic transformation. We are there to catch all the angles and also the spheres of life in there. And that is where today we started the discussions also with what is happening in the country in relation to the ongoing protests. And we are entirely giving the 1 hour for that. And that is something also which we also need to look forward to, because when you talk about corruption, many people have had at least the negative bit of this. Many people have at one time also had the negative challenge and the negative pinch of corruption, and that's why today we also are seeing the young people also coming out in the streets also to protest against the vice in there. But now we are seeing also that happening, but we are saying the right channels must be used. And now the president also asked the young people also to have a meeting also organized by Colonel Edith Nakalema, where they should also meet, that's at Kololo ceremonial grounds, to answer also their grievances in there. And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day will be of great importance in there. But as we get moving in the show, remember we did see also really that the leader of opposition, that is Joel Sayungi, asking Museveni also to listen and also stop taking youth for granted. And that is something also really we are seeing coming from the leader of opposition to president, where the leader of opposition also Joel Sayungi has responded to President Museveni's letter on demonstration to the youth against corruption, named also the March to Parliament in there. Mr. Sayungi also says it's high time the president also to stop taking the youth for granted and listen to their also cries, and instead of this also dismissing their protests and against corruption in there. And you want the continuing to ignore and undermine also really the youth so could sit. You gotta turn like countries where we did see their grievances are not also already answered, and that is something also we did see where so also was addressing the media at National Platform Party also head offices at Makerere Kavule upon also the arrest of some young people in there. And now Mitiana Municipality Member of Parliament Francis Zake was among those released, and he was arrested on Monday as he tried also really to forcefully access the National Platform offices and charged with driving out without permit and bad driving among others. And that's also really where we did see the gentleman in the names of Francis Jake, together with other youth activists already being arrested at National Unity Platform Party Kavule, where they were also planning to hold a press briefing, I believe, in relation to the ongoing also protests in there. But now that is something also we did see happening in there, where Senyonyi asked Museveni to also stop taking the youths for granted. And what do you think about this remark? Do you think it is also really very much important? Definitely, I do not know, but you, the viewer, has the best answer to that. And that's where we are going to be also continuing with the show. Remember, when we talk about issues of corruption, the country has been affected by that. And now we are seeing Nachobe calling for vigilance. That is in terms of fighting corruption, as one of the stories also really happening in the past morning, where the head of public service and secretary to cabinet, Lucy Nachobe, has called for increased vigilance to fight corruption in government ministries, departments, and agencies. And that's also really where we did see her making the call on Thursday, July 25th, also really at Imperial Real Hotel in Kampala, during a meeting also really of the Ministry of Finance and all government accounting officers over the financial year of 2024-2025 budget in there. And according to a statement released by the Ministry of Finance, Nachobe told also the accounting officers that they are at the forefront of fighting corruption in there. And according to the statement, that's also where we did start happening. And Nachobe said the prominent categories of aforementioned staff are grossly also really involved in corruption and within their watch and supervision, and adding that also on several occasions accounting officers are being involved in corruption. But how do we make sure that this does not go on? And she stressed also really the issue where several officers are involved in corruption, and that's really where we are saying the accounting officers, the cows, and the town clerks already must come out now to also really fight corruption in there. And that is one thing at the end of the day, I feel will also address the issues pertaining corruption in this country. But how do we live in a corruption-free Uganda, and what should we do, and how can we do that also without necessarily breaking the laws in there, is something which I really feel I need answers to. As the viewer, you can drop your comment in there and let us know what you think we can be able to do as a nation in terms of also fighting the vice of corruption in the country in there. And that is where we are yet going to be leaving our discussion in terms of Nachobe aside. But before we get to give that, Betty Nakamia, the Inspector General of Government, has stated also that they are working with other agencies to engage public in fighting against corruption, which also is noted is also as old as humanity in there. And yes, I believe in that statement, corruption could also be as old as humanity. But we can change the mindset, because corruption, I believe, is entirely mindset. Because we have done so many activities to also make sure the vice is kicked off. We have created so many government bodies. Look at the IG, look at so many others that have been created, and more are to be created. But how do we still continue to live in a corruption world in there? And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day must also be addressed in there. President Museveni has blast foreign influence in protest is another story that we are looking at the papers this morning. This is on New Vision, where President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has called on protesters to heed the advice of security agencies, emphasizing also the recent anti-corruption demonstration held on Tuesday, July 23rd. Also, that's where we attended by foreign funding, with elements already in Uganda in there. And Museveni underscored the necessity of following police guidance to avoid the unintended also foreign involvement in dangerous activities, and that is something we did see happening. Museveni expressed his appreciation for joint efforts for security officers who have also worked hard to combat the demonstration in the country in there. And I believe that is also something which we also need to let you know of. And the President also condemned foreign entities for meddling in Africa's internal affairs by funding the protests. He highlighted that such also interference has been a persistent issue for the past 6 decades, affecting also the country in there. Now, when you talk about 600 years, where he did also mention that Africa has been also hit by these challenges for over 600 years. But now, how do we make sure that we do not have foreign influence in our activities, as already stated by the President in India? But that is something also I feel I need to let you know of as the viewer this morning. The protest also, which had all low turnout, resulted in the arrest of 56 individuals charged with common nuisances and subsequent actions by security agencies, included a raid that is on Hotel Eliana in Tinda, Nakawa Division, Kampala, where a number of people were detained while preparing to address a press conference. But now the activists have also already been freed. Additional arrests also were made on Thursday, with over 10 protesters also apprehended in downtown Kampala as they attempted to also march to parliament in there. And now, what is Uganda Law Society saying? Uganda Law Society condemned the manner in which security forces handled the peaceful protesters. Law Society also President Bernard Oundo affirmed their commitment also to providing legal aid support to the arrested individuals, because it is within their constitution. But we are saying that shouldn't also be taken for granted, where we are now expecting respect for one another, and the people must respect what the government is saying, and the government also should as well listen to the concerns of these individuals in there. And now, fellow Ugandans, especially the Bazukuru, where this President also has his greetings, where he says he wants to congratulate the armed forces and that's also and Wananchi for filing the anti-graft protest in there. That's also in his lengthy address, which we did see also happening in there. But now we are saying, how do we live in a country where there is no corruption? Could that be possible? Could we live also in a country where there is no corruption? Because one leader, that is Jacob Olanya, the late, who was the former speaker of the parliament, also who actually said corruption is within us, where he asked who is corrupt, where are the corrupt? Who do they also work for? Because he said the corrupt are our aunties, our mothers, our grandfathers, and everybody, and including us when we talk about corruption. But now, how can we live in also in a country that also is corruption free in there? Because that statement really made a lot of information. Because when we look at corruption today, the corruption starts right away from our families. Today, when we look at corruption, it starts right within our families in several ways. And one example also I can't be able to give you how corruption is manifested in the forms is actually money that is being given to women to buy food sometimes. Others save it for their circles. That is really already corruption. That's also where we need to talk about the issues of finance, because that is corruption. When you talk about also some children, you see children, some parents also favoring other children more, and that is still corruption. If at all there's no equity in homes, that becomes corruption. It means that now we must start cleaning the country right from our homes, where as head of states, as head of homes, also the story, we need to also embark on a journey that is also of cleaning our homes against corruption, and where homesteads must also be talked to about the issues pertaining corruption, because when you talk about issues pertaining corruption, me and you have also already been affected by one way or the other. That's also where we come to the end of the first hour. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV channel 477. In case you are just joining us right now, remember today is our final edition for this week, and today also happens to be the 26th of day into the month of July. That means we are just left with about 4 days to wind up with the month, and about 3 days, to wind up with the month. But how ready are you also to also enter another month in there? Because when you look at the 7th month, very soon we are going to be looking at the 8th month, where also we look forward to, as Western Sub-Region, to be connected to the national grid, and that is something also where I will be touching on into our second hour. But for now, let's take this yet important breather as we bounce back shortly with other discussions. Stay tuned.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here. 28 finalists, one crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. True Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Matimba, the popular Abe Kabad, and Jackie Chandiru. The show will broadcast live exclusively on Makula Chika on Star Times at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and U Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here. 28 finalists, one crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. True Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Matimba, the popular Abe Kabad, and Jackie Chandiru. The show will broadcast live exclusively on Makula Chika on Star Times at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and U Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Ataende trovo ababa tambaka retro. Ataende trovo ababa tambaka retro. Inilgba laza yeye dri oludiso district city Uganda diri batiga se aniotea. Laza yeye diri unzi kumvumvu. Adi yesu area se. Kabak podrukowa. Kiba tiri erwa goga dri yesu ka koro ribati ni yesu ka ni emi.
Kole anyini ote lazadea overite de jovu akendre enkone ane ote barangwa egoga jowa. De okoru ati minakoka eka okolo oburu tina konze eka biko de tieru voaru aneke choko drose gane kodzea odundinti ina.
Ha inyenyi tinya batiri ti erwa goga dri dozi yeri lazaye yedri goga reri esure. Dozi ati jo adore adekwea barangwa imbadi chalorini. Dozi yeri jo adore adekwea barangwa imba mutulimbi arorini. Erwa lazaye yedri goga reri loso kebuide voa ilili. Kanya batiri goga loso.
A ianye ata endretro baba tambakariti laponia ampa la sedri amba dini dri amba eidri vuesti voa elisi kodrotro anyeba ojike batiri amadri kodrose edojo empa drichalo ndikenya to rebati erwa lazaye yedri egogade ware esure.
Ofuli jodi arunda nyimukusa nyungweta erwa joni dri rega district health office a kusa nyungweta office ministry rwebwe diri a ilili number didri 000 alo 000 azia kusa sms ilili you report dri number didri aroto 00 ofudi enga ministry rwebwe diri konyi engare UNICEF dri WHO dri voa ebuba zizi tidri Ridrisi.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Alright, welcome back from that long commercial break. We are 7 minutes after 8 o'clock, and this is where one takes opportunity now in a special way to welcome you back from also that long break in there, and now into our second hour, where we are still going to be letting you know all information that continue to happen in the country and also international in there. But now to begin off with the discussions right away from Kampala, where former Deputy Resident City Commissioner for Rubaga, Anderson Brora, was arrested. Now he has been granted bail, and that's something also we are seeing on the press this morning, where now court has ordered him also to refrain from also posting anything misleading against the Speaker of Parliament, Miss Anita Mong, on his social media platforms in there. And that is something also we are seeing now as a warning to him as he returns also from prison. But definitely now he comes out with a warning. Anything that also really undermines the peace of Speaker of Parliament in there. Now, Presiding Chief Magistrate at Buganda Road Court, Ronald Kaizi, made the order as one of the conditions while granting Brora bail on July 25th in there. Now, the man in the names of Anderson Brora, remember, was arrested, also really following concern that he had also really been posting things against the Speaker of Parliament, which are misleading. And now we have also really seen him now as one of the conditions for him getting bail. That he has now been also really questioned against issues of also really attempting to also really post anything bad or against the Speaker of Parliament in there. Now that's something we are seeing on the paper this morning, but I don't know how best we can be able to solely do that. But now that's a warning to him. Mr. Brora also faces 8 charges of hate speech and malicious information, which are contrary to the Computer Misuse Act, and he also really has since denied the accusations against him in there. And now prosecutions in the offense of hate speech also state that also between March 2024 and June 2024 in the areas of Kampala district, they are both also using his X handle, that's also of Hada HB. Anderson Brora also shared information that Miss Anita Mong, the Speaker of Parliament, is a torturer, kidnapper, murderer and corrupt, also which information is likely to ridicule or degrade or demean and promote hostility also against her in there, and that is why he got arrested. And we did see also in the offense of malicious information, the state also indicates that Mr. Brora shared malicious information on his handle also where he was also sharing information that also was very, very much bad against the Speaker of Parliament in there. But now that's something I feel I need to let you know when you talk about the arrest in this country, as so many issues also continue to happen, but we are there to keep you also informed of what also could be happening. But I feel at the end of the day, this also must be having an implication of what exactly it means. But as we get moving on the show, so many of these activities going to happen in there, but now we are saying we must use the right channels. Much as we are having information of freedom of speech, which we are also really entitled to, but we are saying that shouldn't also be taken for granted. That's also to undermine the peace of others. We must use the computers also really very much responsibly, and that would also really help us also avoid, that would also help us avoid also being caught up by the laws in there. Now, comedian Rain, charged with attempt also to commit hate speech, is another story we are seeing on the past morning, where a Ugandan comedian, Obed Lubega, popularly known as Rain, has been charged also with attempting to commit hate speech in there. And remember, this also follows the arrest also going out of late, and that's something also which I feel I need to let you know of, because if at all we are talking about that, definitely it would also be very, very much bad for us to understand in there. Now, Lubega appeared before also Mwanga 2 grade 1 magistrate, also court presided over by the principal magistrate, that is Adams Biarugaba, who read also the charges also to him on July 25th also in there. And now he denied the charges of attempting to commit offense of hate speech, which is contrary to also the Computer Misuse Act in there. And Mr. Biarugaba granted him a cash bail of shillings 1 million, while his suitors were also entitled to shillings a non-cash bond of 10 million Ugandan shillings in there. And now, through his lawyers, Mr. Lubega applied also for bail, reasoning also that he has fixed place of bond, and the offense also against him is bailable, and he is also the substantial sureties who included the father and the partner in the comedy in there. Because if you look at the comedian which is already arrested today, he's actually one person doing also comedy in group in there, because there are two, Maulana and Rain, who are doing comedy in there, and that's also where he was arrested. But we are saying people must avoid issues of what we call taking the laws into their hands. Computer Misuse Act today is actually one thing also which I feel has been also really developed also to deal with a lot of issues, because over the times we have seen people also really insulting others via the computer also platforms in there. But we are saying all this should be avoided, because we must avoid issues of taking the laws into our hands. Because if at all you're going to be insulting somebody, the person can still sue you under the Computer Misuse Act. Today you see so many people posting very, very much bad things, but they don't know actually if the people whom they are also attacking understand and know what exactly the Computer Misuse Act, the Computer also Misuse Act is all about. That would also have them also arrested in there. That would also mean as a warning to those who are also in there. And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day I need to also remind you of. But that's something which we did see happening, and I believe that is actually the way to go. And now take those who bribe you to police. Tayeba tells MPs is another story that we are seeing on the past morning, where the Deputy Speaker of Parliament has advised legislators to report also to police all persons who bribe and attempt to also indulge them in acts of corruption. And Mr. Tayeb also was speaking at the end of the induction ceremony, organized also for House Committee chairpersons and Deputy chairpersons also at Parliament on July 25th in there. And Mr. Tayeb urged the House leaders to share the same advice with their committee chairpersons, and that is also where they have been asked to report whoever asks for bribes from them to police. And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day would be very, very much important. And he used the same event to trash corruption allegations that we also levied on him on Tuesday, against him on Tuesday, by Aringa South MP, that's Alioni York Odria. And that is something also which we did see him also addressing on. And his remarks also forms part of the measures that Parliament is mooting to shield its members from other bribery activities and situations solely why while involving some legislators with major allegations made also in the House Speaker, that's Anita Mong, and committee chairperson in there. And that is something which we did see, and consequently a section of youth on July 23rd also organized anti-graft march to Parliament as means also of also expressing their displeasure over the continuous cases of corruption in the country in there. And that is something which we did see happening, and we also looked also forward to that. And that is one thing at the end of the day I feel we need to also really talk about, because when you look at issues of corruption in Parliament, people are losing trust in that house. And how can the house really make sure that they come out to explain to the public that indeed what the public is thinking is not also the truth? Because if the public is now looking at them as corrupt officials, how can they change the narrative also the public is developing towards them? And that is quite important for the leaders of the Parliament also to make sure that they come out to clean their names and also clean the house against tendencies of corruption, which the public is now feeling has been also really very much infiltrating the house in there. But that is where we are also really stopping with that discussion aside, and now let's also really look at what is happening elsewhere. And also still, this is now in relation to health and where and councils across also education, where now we are seeing government wants to establish schools to also establish also really mental health clubs. And that is something also really we are seeing on the papers this morning, where the Ministry of Health has asked schools also to establish mental health clubs to curb the increasing cases of drug abuse among school-going children. And this is quite important. And today you realize most of the learners are actually into drug abuse, and we are seeing many of them also running mad. And this is quite evident, more so during sporting activities, more so during public gatherings that bring in together so many schools. You will realize that at least a section of learners leave where they are to go also for the drugs also in there. And I was able to see very soon, I was able, just a few days ago, I was able to see also the same activities happening, where I was able to see learners, young boys and girls, into alcohol drinking. Others were smoking opium. But really, how do these learners learn these things, and how will this impact on them is something also I feel at the end of the day is very, very much wrong for these learners to engage in. And according to Dr. Afswa Lukwata, the Assistant Commissioner also really Mental Health and Substance Abuse at Ministry of Health, says such clubs also will help children discuss issues around mental health. And today when you talk about mental health, many of the Ugandans also really are said to be having at least a mental illness case. And this has not spared the learners, and this has neither also spared the school-going children. But how do we make sure that the cases, more so among these also learners, does not go on as we also alluding to? And according to the last Global Youth also Tobacco Survey in 2019, also done in Uganda, 11.7% of the young people use all different forms of tobacco. It means also today we are having young people who are smoking different types of tobacco in there. And Dr. Lukwata said the survey also indicated that the difference also in smoking tobacco between the males and females, already, which is said to be quite common amongst young people, which is already something which we are seeing less than more in there. And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day we need to sort of talk about, because we have young girls and boys who are into drug abuse. And when we talk about drug abuse, it's not only boys who are doing it. We have girls who are also into drug abuse, ladies who are smoking, ladies who are taking alcohol, ladies who are doing bad, and what really we are seeing them also engaging in shisha, tobacco, and other drugs. I wouldn't also really want to mention here, because when you talk about other forms of smokings, today we have also been told that people are smoking other things to also really convince men. All these are very much bad things which I wouldn't also really want to talk about, but we are saying these are issues that we must avoid, and also in the strongest terms so condemn in there, because as Western, we do not condone such practices. We also rather discourage them, and we also encourage people to also really desist from tendencies of drug abuse, because if you are smoking drugs, just because you feel you have a problem, I must tell you that problem is going to be addressed short-termly, other than also really focusing on long-term and also ending the problems. And that's also where we are saying drug abuse is never a solution. For those of you who are using for the other reasons, we are saying still drugs cannot make you also really attain what you want to attain in there. And that's why we are saying disease from the tendencies of drug abuse. Keep away from drugs, stop smoking, stop drinking alcohol. At the end of the day, live a healthy life, because all this has a negative implication on your livelihood and also your lifestyle as well, and on your health. Because look at the money that you are spending on drugs. Each and every time you are wasting a lot of money, first of all, on buying alcohol, buying drugs. And I must inform you, this is having a negative repercussions and a negative implication on your pockets and also on your health, because if you run mad, definitely it will be you to be termed a mad person, not anybody. And that is where we're saying you must, this is some tendencies of drug abuse, because drug abuse can never be a solution in there. And civil society organizations specializing in mental health have welcomed the idea of establishing mental health clubs also in the schools, and as they are saying, this is also coming at a critical time where the impacts of COVID-19 also still continue to be prevalent in communities, and that is one thing we did see happening in there. Mr. Derek Mbuga Kiza, the Executive Director, Mental Health Uganda, however, said these clubs must be able to respond to the direct needs of the children in there, and that is one advice which I believe the schools also should be taking keenly in there. And he says clubs must be able to meet the right standards, ethics must be also met, and children must be also members of the health club as a natural environment, natural space, and also where they can be able to go and share their problems, and that's also where these activities should be under open space, other than also really confining them at the staff rooms and maybe also the classrooms. And that wouldn't work. And also that's where we are also saying having these activities established in open environment, we will be able to also address some of the concerns that we are talking about. And according to health experts, smoking and taking alcohol in a woman is dangerous, because those pregnant ones, it affects the unborn child, and it also affects the reproductive systems and affects the woman's future as well. And that's why we're saying the young children also must be cautioned against the aspect of drug abuse in there, and they shouldn't also really engage in the practices of abuse, substance abuse in there. According to health experts, that's also where we are seeing them, and she called continuous talking to young people so that they can never restarting smoking in there, because for you who does not smoke, we are saying do not engage in it, do not even admire it, because it is never a good thing and it's never going to address your problems. It may only address your problems for a short time, but in the long run, we still see you grappling with those challenges. Mr. Agre Chibenge, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Gender and Labour and Social Development, wants parents to be also at the center of the fight against child abuse and drug abuse in there. And that is one thing which we did see happening. And I want to say child abuse has actually caused a lot of trauma, which also subjected a number of young people into drug abuse in there, because we are saying when a child has a problem, we see some parents beating their children as if they are beating animals, even would not also permit animals to be beaten to that extent. And you really wonder if at all this child is a criminal, maybe also if this child has committed an offense that deserves that, but we are saying human rights don't permit that, but we are still having child abuse also really as also rampant happening in our societies in there. In August 2023, Parliament passed the Narcotics and Psychotropic Substance Control Bill of 2023, which allows increased also really licensed farming and using of marijuana strictly for medical use, but today we are still seeing young people using it for solely keeping it high, because many of them say if you interact with them, they will tell you, I do this to remain high, and once I'm high, my problems are never there. But we are saying, till when are you going to be using substance to solely run away from your problems in there? Because you are not going to be running away from your problems through drug, maybe substance abuse. And what if this substance abuse is not there at one time? Do you think that you will be able to solely address that problem? We are saying no. We are saying, listen, if at all you have any problem, it could be financial problems, it could be health, please seek the right channels and seek the right usage also of information to also make sure that you disease some drug abuse in there, because substance abuse is actually one concern that has affected the country in one way or the other. Today we have young people not want to work because simply they think drug abuse is the way to go. Many of them actually go on sitting in the training centers, are waiting to ask whoever is to come their way. But we are saying that shouldn't be the case. It's actually one thing we must condemn as citizens, and also something we must desist from, because it is never going to address our concerns in there. And that's something we did see where Drugs Upon team led by Ms. Anne Asebunya, the organizers of the conference in partnership with the Butabuka Hospital, said empowering young students, leaders will ensure development of peer educators who will also go back to their respective schools and talk to their fellow youths on the dangers of drugs and substance abuse. And that's where I'm saying we must also really have these mental illness clubs established across all the schools, and that would also really address the concern of what we are also talking about in there. Now student leaders through George William of St. Patrick High School, Hoima called also for everyone to stand up and do everything to fight and end drug abuse in children. And that is where we're summarizing that discussions with drug abuse and looking out at what's happening in environment. And we have also really on a sad note received information that at least 2 children have also really been killed by floods in Moroto. And remember, we have seen also the return of the rains, and this is actually in most parts of the country. But how do we make sure that we not also be affected also by the dangers of climate change in there. And that's something I feel at the end of the day is quite important, because many of the times we are seeing the return of the rains, but the wetlands have been encroached and the drainage channels already have as well been affected. And that's where we are seeing flooding becoming flooding in most cases also in different areas in there. But now we are saying with the return of the rains, where we are likely to see the rains also being more than the normal, we are saying we must make sure the children are safe. What am I saying? As parents, if I told you to leave your children at home, you must make sure they are left with the right people, and also the people who are going to give them guidance in case of also rains taking place when you are absent. They will also be in position to take care of your children in there. And that's why we're saying we must also avoid issues of constructing houses in areas which are also of low belts in the now. Children, on a sad note, have lost their lives after being also swept away by flash floods in Moroto district already on Wednesday, and the tragic incident also occurred in the areas of Katanga and Kakeli. That's only something we did see happening in there, where in Kokolirieko, a 13-year-old Lucia Ekolol was attempting to cross also the river with her companion, Mrs. Ellen Aleper, when both also were swept away by the raging torrents in there. And that's why we're saying, as elders, we must make sure that the children do not move and also play in the rains there, because many times we see when rains like this, children are running over to also make sure they are showered by the rains, not understanding how dangerous it is. And that's one thing also at the end of the day we must also continuously also advocate for. We must also talk to also the parents and guardians in relation to also not allowing the children to cross the rains and also those dangerous bridges also over during this period of rain. While community members managed to rescue Aleper, Ikulolo was carried away by waters and tragically drowned, and that's something we did see happening in there. Now the police confirmed that Aleper is in their custody and will be handed over to your parents upon also that incident that happened in there. But we continue to pray for our soul to rest in the eternal peace, and for Aleper, we also I want to ask guidance so for those who are within the area to also keep on talking to her, because definitely this trauma is going to be also something of also a lifetime experience. Because for you to lose a friend or a sister just like that, trust me, as a child, it is actually something that is very dangerous. To see your colleague with whom you are we also just die like that, it becomes quite difficult to sort of handle in there. And that's why we're saying people must make sure that they talk to the children. And the police have issued warnings to the community about the dangers of crossing also seasonal rivers during the rainy season and constructing homes near the river banks in there. However, residents have expressed their frustration, blaming the government also for failing to install essential infrastructure such as bridges within Moroto municipality in there. And that is where these people also have felt that the government has not done enough in terms of making sure that the infrastructure is developed. And that's only where, if at all the infrastructure was developed, the waters would also pass underneath and the children would just pass up. And that's where they felt their issues are being neglected. But we are saying still, much as the bridges are being constructed, but today we are seeing some individuals who are unscrupulous, who still want to dump garbage in what we call these drainage channels, something which I feel we must condemn in the strongest terms, and also make sure that we desist from, because at the end of the day, these are things that have affected the country in one way or the other. And that's why we're saying we must make sure that when we are also when we have these projects, first of all the bridges and the roads, we not dump in these trenches, something which we have seen quite often in Arua City happening, where people come with garbage and just dump into these drainage channels, something which is now blocking water passage, and that also results into flooding in there. And that is something at the end of the day we must desist from, if at all we are not also lose also our children in there in cases of accidents. And that is one thing which we must preach also in the strongest terms in that. We must also caution children against moving also in the rainy season, and as parents you must also issue stern warnings to the children so that they not also remove in your absence in there. And however, residents have expressed their frustration, blaming the government also for that, and that's something also which we are seeing happening in Moroto. And I feel I need to also let you know of. But what if government constructs this? What about those who have been dumping garbage in areas where there are these drainage channels, where there are these also roads also in there? And that is something at the end of the day I feel we need to give keen interest to as we get to move on with the show. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show. We are just 2 minutes, that's to 8:30, and that's where we are going to be coming with our final half. that will be ushering us straight into the news bulletin that will be coming at 9 o'clock with Frete Emmanuel, who is already here to sort of let you know of what is happening in the other areas where we couldn't also maybe let you know of. But we are saying the news bulletin in Lubarati is coming anytime from now, and that's sort of where we are yet following up on the discussion. And talking about the discussions, so many issues continue to happen in the country, but we started with the demonstration in the country right in the first hour, where we were able to sort of interact and also let you know of the issues that happen in the country pertaining the ongoing anti-graft protests in Arua City, where I was able to sort of inform you that also we are able to be capped and protected, also controlled, under control by the UPDF and the police also, who were able to be deployed in most critical areas in Arua City in there. This is where we were expecting this spot also the young people also to camp in, but also we didn't see that happening. And today we also going to be following up on if at all there's any development in relation to that, but we are going to be taking yet another short commercial break. In case you are just joining us right now, you must welcome aboard. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV, channel 477 on StarTimes, and also 0073 on Zuku for those of you who are watching us via the dish, where you can be able to watch us. And that's one thing also at the end of the day, which I really need to also inform you of. But for now, we are going to be taking yet another short commercial break that will be ushering us into our final half of the discussion. My name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned as we bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here! 28 finalists, one crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. True Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Sematimba, the popular Abe Kabad, and Jackie Chandiru. The show will broadcast live exclusively on Makula Chika on StarTimes at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and U Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome into our final half of today's discussions, and also for this week's end of the KOKOLIRIKO live show, because on Fridays, this is already where we come to the end of the week's shows. But I must inform you who has been watching us right from the beginning of the week until this also day of the week, we are saying we do not take it for granted. We are always appreciative of you, and we are always proud as West Nile TV to also really be in partnership with you in there, because to enlighten the region, definitely you are a stakeholder, something we cannot be able to do alone, and the mission we cannot entirely achieve alone. And when we talk about issues of enlightening the region, one good news for the people of this region is that the request also really for the extension of the period for motorcycle registration at promotional price has been extended, and now that's also something which we are seeing our number of people slowly being encouraged also to take advantage of the promotion in now. And now we're speaking to the head of customs at the Rural Office, that's Ajiga Mansour. He was able to also explain and tell us that also this exercise also will now be extended for yet another 3 months, because we are still seeing numberless motorcycles besides the 6-month period that was granted, which was already ended. Also now we are seeing it extended for another 3 months. But we are still seeing our young people not going to be taking advantage of registering their motorcycles also at half price. We are saying this shouldn't also be the case, and maybe this 3 months should also be of advantage for us, and we must take advantage of it, and that's already where we are going to be registering our motorcycles at half prices, and that is where we did see a jig also calling upon the people also to take advantage of this exercise in there, and that is where we are leaving that discussion aside. And remember, yesterday we did see also over 150 cassava farmers from the region and traders in Greater Aru also being boosted with skills in financial literacy and value addition in a 4-day training that also undergo and was organized also by under a project also by Post Bank in partnership also with Federation of Small Scale and Medium-Sized Enterprises, and these are the SMEs which did go on also that is already at the former Matonge in there, and that is something which we did see going on. And now with also as the region is now waiting to have also the final connection to the national grid, how do we make sure that as we are waiting for the power that is going to be coming in abundance also has an impact on the products we are producing in this region, which among others is cassava, because Western Sub-region is actually one area that is known for cassava production. And if I can be able to tell you that I've been moving most of the rural areas, and one of the food crops that has actually been planted most is cassava. But how do we make sure the cassava which we are going to produce in surplus does not go into waste? Because somebody may be saying, I'm going to be getting that and also just sell it. How are you going to be selling it without value addition? And that's also where it is very much important for the farmers also to take advantage of that, and the traders as well to ensure value addition on the products so that are going to be coming out, most especially cassava, which we are seeing most of the local governments in Western Sub-region have planted. Because I was able to move in Madiokolo, I saw gardens of cassava. Arua district, I was able to see gardens of cassava. Yumbe district, I was still able to see gardens of cassava. Arua district, gardens of cassava, and many other areas, Zombo, not forgetting Zombo and other areas, I was able to see still gardens of cassava. But how do we make sure that what we are going to produce and what comes when we are to harvest does not go into waste? Because some people did also maybe produce these things for eating alone, but we are saying that shouldn't be the case. We must mind of also really how we are going to be changing our livelihoods, and also really how these things are going to impact on our pockets in there through what we call also value addition. And with the social power that we are waiting as a region, trust me, value addition should be also really given keen interest to. And what are some of those things maybe cassava can be turned into? First of all, the cassava can be turned into flour, which is food, and ethanol, which we can also use for making alcohol. And that is quite important, where the farmers now must start thinking of how they are going to be using this cassava that they're going to be producing in surplus already in there. And that's also something at the end of the day I feel is quite important. And talking about value addition, we are waiting for power also as Western Sub-region will be connected, and definitely we need factories. We need factories that shall be established in there, and one also is an establishment in a rural district where we also going to be looking forward on how this factory also once connected national grid will be impacting on the livelihoods of the young people in there. And that is where we're leaving that discussion aside, and now where we are now talking about issues related to land, where Nabakova, also the Minister of Land, orders for fresh land survey amid disputes also in there. And now we are seeing the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Ms. Judith Nabakova, has ordered a new boundary also opening on disputed land in parishes of Kigorani, Migongwe, and Mwanjubura, and also Kishora, also in Chegaga district, and the parts of Chino district. In the contested land in Kusogan parish is registered under a leasehold of 49 years and encompassing more than 2,000 households, as it was formerly owned by the cooperative company Mawino under the late Crescent Muiruma Babaguma. And now we are seeing this dispute following in there. And following the dispute and following the demise, the property also already passed to a woman who then transferred the land title into her own name. So during a subsequent survey, portions of the land originally owned by the residents were incorporated into her ownership, and local leaders who expressed concerns that since 2022, 2022, residents have also lived under threat of eviction despite the agreement also reached that year in there. And that is something also at the end of the day I feel I need to let you know of. And according to this year's agreement, the land owned engaged by local leaders on April 27th of 2022 will retain also 477 acres per 2009 boundary declination, while residents also would also maintain uninterrupted possession of the land remaining in there. And that is something also when we talk about issues of land. This is not only happening in Chenjojo. We are talking, when you talk about land disputes, this cut across all the areas. And today that's where we are seeing also issues also pertaining murders, issues pertaining also witchcraft, all that allegations coming as a result of issues of what we call out land boundaries. And she assured residents that following the President Museveni's directive to all RDCs and RCCs nationwide, so no one is expected to be evicted, and that's something also we are seeing happening right now. And another land dispute exists in Goma Parish, where about 90 households from the village of Kijara and Kiabamba as well affected, and these also conflicts involves National Forest Authority, with residents already accused of encroaching on government land, and that is something also we are following up on. And remember, the government of Uganda has today embarked on the restoration and solely government forest, first of all, the gazetted areas such as forest and the wetlands, which we're also seeing now the people also living under threat of being evicted in there. In May 2018, court ruled in favor of the affected residents, ordering compensation and allowing them to also return and settle on their land in there. And that's something also which we are following up on. And fresh also maybe audits also will be able to address that issue in there. Deputy Attorney General of Uganda, Mr. Jackson Kafuzi, who represents Chiaka County, South County, also in Parliament, also assured residents that the Land Act protects them and their issues will be resolved in there. And that is something also we are yet following up on. And I feel we need to also let the citizens also understand that also the fresh audits of the areas also will be able to address the matters we are yet following up on. And issues also of that caliber continue to happen, and that's also where we are going to be also keeping you in the know of. And leaving that aside, let's look at some of the stories happening elsewhere. Remember, the fight against corruption has also been so many talked of, and really that's where I feel we need to also talk about, because if we don't talk about it, then definitely we also going to be living that. And earlier on we are able to talk about it extensively, and that's also where at the end of the day we are going to be also called upon to make sure that we do something. And as citizens, you who is watching us now, definitely you have a part to play in terms of addressing the corruption in there. And what can you do exactly? You need to make sure that the government in also acting as a whistleblower. Report those who are involved in corruption scandals. Feel free to also tip off the police. Feel free to tip off your local leaders, so that they can also carry out investigations into also this issues pertaining also in this fight also in there. And that's something also which we feel we need to also let you know of. And leaving that aside, issues also pertaining other issues in the country, we also seeing Kano Nakalema meets youth leaders over corruption fight is another story that we are seeing on the past morning, where the head of State House and Investors Protection Unit, that's Kano Edith Nakalema, yesterday held a fruitful meeting with the youth leaders. And during the meeting that was also held at the unit's office in Kampala, Kano Nakalema and the youth leaders also discussed how they can fight corruption in the country through the procedures they discussed in there. And that is one thing, and that's what we expect. And at the end of the day, that is how we are going to be also addressing our issues pertaining the country in there. And that is where we are leaving that discussion aside with. And now let's look at what's happening now internationally across the borders, where Kagame sacks long-serving minister over accountability is another story that we are seeing on the past morning. Remember, just a few days ago, Tanzania was able to sack 2 ministers over remarks of election rigging, something also which we did see happening in there. Now it has also headed to Rwanda, where Kagame has sacked long-serving minister over accountability is another story we are seeing on the paper this morning. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has dismissed the Minister of Public Service and Labor, Dr. Jean Ad Mwanjuramia, over issues of accountability, and that's another story we are seeing on the past morning across the borders, where Mr. Kagame's decision communicated by Prime Minister Edward Ngirente was on Thursday. So he says Uganda is under investigation, and now she has been suspended. And Susan Kigali also told the publication that the minister's accountability issues are also in relation to issues of the environment docket, that it appears her exit disposed also a few clothes with skeletons in there, and that is something also I feel I need to let you know of across borders. In the Kagame's government is known for exercise zero tolerance to corruption and also issues related to malpractice in India. And the PhD holder in physical chemistry, Mwanjurami, has also previously served as Minister of Gender and Family Promotion also from 2011 to 2013, and Minister of Education from 2006 until 2008, and she has also served in education at junior ministerial levels, such as Primary Education Minister, and also the year of 2005 to 2006, and Secondary Education 2003 to 2005, and the former Rwandan Ambassador to Russia, as well as Vice Chancellor of the then Kigali Institute of Science and Technology in there. It means that solely, despite the experience, she could have also failed to account also something now where she will also be sacked on for in there. And that's something also which we did see happening. Looking elsewhere, Eritrea suspends Ethiopian Airlines, also where we are seeing sites, luggage theft, and also pilferage is another story that we are seeing also already being reported on the past morning, where Eritrean authorities have suspended all flights by Ethiopian Airlines to airspace ineffective, also something which we did see happening, where in a statement, the Eritrean Civil Aviation Authority accused the Ethiopian Airlines of pursuing consistent and persistent malicious trading practices, where they cited issues of also theft. It also said that the airline was operating under systematic and organized passenger luggage theft, pilferage, damage, and prolonged delays, as well as loss with no compensation in particular, coupled also with unjustified and unwarranted price hikes and other irregularities already being witnessed in there. And now the authorities are saying the suspension came also after repeated and so relentless calls made on Ethiopian Airlines to rectify and pitfalls and other irregularities imposed also on the traveling public, and failed also to yield anything. And that's something also which we did see happening, and we feel we also as well need to let you know of. Hannah and Nafu, a spokesperson also for the airline, also told readers that flight suspension came as a surprise to them, and that is something also which we feel you need to also understand. However, the publication has understand that it also citing unjustified and unwarranted price hikes, where the price will just be increased like that, and now the return also are feeling very, very much bad by that. And how can we make sure such issues also do not also go on in there? Because if at all they are continuing to happen, then definitely that wouldn't also be well in there. But that's something also where we also going to be leaving that discussion aside with, as we get to move on with the show, where so many issues already continue to happen in there. But how do you make sure that also we also understand also these issues in there? And now that's also where at the end of the day we should also be learning from, because what we are discussing here must also be of importance, and that's also where accountability becomes very, very much also important. It could also not be maybe at the top level, but irrespective of what you do, you must always make sure that there's accountability. And once asked, definitely you can be able to solely explain and also account ably for the resources solely that you have also being put at your disposal in there. And that is one thing also at the end of the day we need to also talk about in there. And now looking at some of the stories, global hunger crisis, at least 111 for fierce hunger, that's also according to UN, also as a warning, where a staggering 703 million people, equivalent to 1 in 11 globally, have faced hunger in 2023, according to the latest United Nations report. And the status of food security and nutrition also in the world, also report published also by 5 United Nations also already specialized agencies on July 24, 2023. 24 reveals also that the world is failing short of also achieving sustainable development goals, which also among others also talked of zero hunger by the year 2030, where each and everybody is at least to have what to eat. And looking at the sustainable development goals, which also talk about so many issues, hunger is actually one of the areas that was already put also forward also to be addressed by the year 2030 India. Today, when you look at 2030, today we are in 2024, just about 6 months and also 5 months and now some months. That is to clock that year in there. But how do we make sure that we reach that time without necessarily also really, first of all, talking about the issues of hunger? And despite some progress in specific areas such as stunting and also exclusive breastfeeding, the report says that also already alarming number of people continue to face food security and malnutrition in the country. So that's something we did see, which also states between 713 and 757 million people, and also undernourished in 2023, and approximately 152 million more than 2019 was considering range also in there. And regional trends also vary, with hunger increasing also in Western Asia, the Caribbean, and most African sub-regions so in there. And how do we make sure when we talk about issues of hunger that we are not also really excluded out in there, because hunger continues to remain a great challenge solely to the nation and also other areas in there, because when you talk about hunger, today many people solely continue to be affected by that vice in there. Many homes are today finding it very much hard to at least able also find the 3 meals per day, and that is where we also being termed also already under the middle, and not under the middle income, and also where we're being termed as a poor country, and also in the third world in there, because sometimes our families find it very difficult to access the 3 times decent meals. But how do we make sure that also we also have our food, which is a necessity, at least be eaten 3 times a day in there? Because we look at breakfast, lunch, and supper. Many times, many families also find it difficult to also access all these 3 meals in there. Many also just find one breakfast and maybe supper, and it's enough. Lunch becomes a mindset. Amid this also the several interventions government is putting in place. And today we have huge chunks of land where people could actually engage in agriculture, but many are not also engaging in that. But we are saying to avoid also being catered, also being captured. In this report, we must make sure that we are not also leaving ourselves to just live and die in hunger in there. We must make sure that we are working harder and also harder to make sure that we achieve what we want, and that will also at the end of the day make us live and also move away from poverty in there. And that is one thing also we did see, where food insecurity and malnutrition are worsening due to combination of factors, including persistent food price inflation and conflict. We are talking about climate change and economic downtowns. And remember, when we talk about climate change, this is a reality at a time where we expect many people to engage in farming. Many not think that it's not the right time for them to also engage, and now we are seeing the rains returning like never before. And that means we need to also make sure that we embrace technology. And embracing the technology also really will be also really very, very much important. And I really feel if people also embrace technology, first of all, of irrigation, and then secondly, greenhouse technology, that would also really be very, very much important. And I feel at the end of the day, that would also really address the concerns we are talking about. And I feel that would also really, at the end of the day, make us all realize why we need to also really make sure that we fight against also the hunger and malnutrition in the world that has already eaten also and claimed life out of many people. And that's one thing at the end of the day that I feel we need to also really talk about in there. Talking about elections in America, Trump puts out America on big X ramp, and that's something we are seeing on the passmont. Remember, anytime from now, America will also be going into elections, where we see recently Joe Biden pulling out of the elections and leaving the elections, and that's entirely in the 2 countries who will be competing to lead also America in the next election. And one of the persons is Donald Trump, who is actually seeking to also rebound back and also head this nation for yet another term in there. But that is one thing also which is happening, and we are going to be following up on that elections, and keenly we shall be letting you know when the right time comes on whoever will be elected to also lead that elections and lead the country in terms of elections in there. And that is one thing also really at the end of the day I feel you need to also know of, because if at all you're not knowing it, then definitely you may not also understand why elections of America is quite important. I must tell you, what happens in America is of great importance for us to solely understand, because the democracy sometimes we copy is that we copy it from those powerful countries, and that's where it becomes solely very much important for us to solely keep ourselves in the watch of what is happening in there. And that would also at the end of the day mean a lot also in terms of also in that. When we talk about also issues happening internationally and in war of Israel, we are seeing also Israel attacks to Gaza cities north, also and south is also where we're seeing the war still continuing. But how do we make sure that the war also happening in Israel and in Palestine also is addressed? Because we are seeing also attacks being levied also by Israel, but the war still continues to also go on. And now we are seeing 2 Palestinian youths wounded in Israel raid, or that's on Kalikela, that's some area in that area also in there. But now we are saying, how do we make sure that this war ends? Because war is never something good. And if you saw what happened in Ukraine, now you see what is happening in Palestine, definitely you will know why war is never good, and something also a reason as to why we must desist from tendencies of war, and rather we must embrace dialogue. And now in a new wave of airstrikes by Israel fighter jets, has also targeted the Gaza Strip, including Khan Yunis in south, Beirut's refugee camp in the center, and Gaza City in the north of the enclave, as also identified by Al Jazeera also in there. And Israel military also forces fire also live rounds at an ambulance evacuating wounded persons, and that's sort of where we are saying war is never good, because areas of great importance, for instance schools and medical facilities, sometimes are never spared. And now an ambulance has been hit also really, by the Israel forces also really in there. And how do we make sure that this wars does not go on, and we need to also have peace? And that's something also really at the end of the day which we feel you must also really be in the know of. An Israel military raid last night on the city also really, that's of Kalkia, in the occasion so occupied by West Bank, two Palestinian youths wounded as a result of gunfire. And the Wafa also news also reports, in local sources told Wafa that the Israeli soldiers stormed the city through the eastern entrance and pursued a vehicle, opening fire at it and injuring 2 occupants of the vehicle in there. And now the Palestinian Ministry of Health confirmed the 2 injured also individuals, one with severe wounds and the other who survived with minor injuries were admitted at Kalkia Government Hospital in there. And now that's where we are saying we must condemn wars, and we must also address our concerns without necessarily violence. And Israel forces have also closed the city's main eastern entrance, with the metro also gate obstructing the movement of residents during the raid. And once your movement is restricted, trust me, access to food is actually going to be very, very much difficult. And at the end of the day, that would also mean hunger and death in there, because some of the produce and also products that are to be used in that area may not also be reached there, because sometimes they use these things, they get them from outside, and that's already where, if the road is also closed, then definitely goods that are also expected to also come from those areas are going to be limited in there. And an Israeli official has claimed that comments by the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris are calling for an end also to the war and highlighting the dire humanitarian crisis for Palestinians will be emboldened Hamas and harm ceasefire also negotiations and time sort of Israel also in there. And that is where we are saying negotiations also between the parties is actually very much welcomed at this time, and I believe that is also something that needed to be done in this time here. And earlier reports also we indicated that we are also likely Democratic presidential nominee said also they will also not be silent about the suffering also in Gaza following her meeting with the Israel Prime Minister, that is Benjamin Netanyahu, in Washington on Thursday in there. That's already one of the areas. The lady also we are talking about, Kamala Harris, who is also eyeing to also take over the presidency of America, is also going to be working towards, and we hope also she addresses that matter in there, because once that is not done so, and then definitely many people also going to be affected in there by those issues. And that's one thing also at the end of the day, I feel also we need to also keep you in the know of. If at all we not also let you know of, then definitely that would also be good for us to understand in there. And that is one thing also at the end of the day we need to also really let you know of as we get to move on with the show. And now talking about issues happening, and as we get to move on with the show, remember we are just left with about 5 minutes to wind up with today's discussions, and this will also really be ushering us into the news bulletin in Lubarati with Fete Emmanuel. That will just be coming shortly from now in just 5 minutes, and that's really where we now summarize our entire discussions with what's happening in the world of sports. And that's where we are saying in the world of transfers, one last dance for Kevin De Bruyne is already where he is also said to be moved in the target, also to move in the Saudi Pro League in there. And this week's agenda, Pep Guardiola's insistence, that's already, but Kevin De Bruyne will remain at Manchester City is also something we did see, and that's also where we also seeing the player in the names of Kevin De Bruyne has been linked with a move that is to also a club in Saudi Arabia in there, and that's also where we are going to be leaving that aside. And meanwhile, Aston Villa's impressive summer business and the pursuit of João Felix continues, as also the incoming Arsenal's Dels Defo, that's Ricardo Calafori, is also complete. That's not something we are going to be following up on, and that's already where the player also really will be coming also in the club in there. Now remember, also so many players have also really been linked with a move away from the club that is of Arsenal, where Edin Ketia has been linked with a move that is to Marseille in there, and that is also something at the end of the day I feel you need sort of to be knowing of. And talking about what's happening in the world of sports, more detailed report also will be coming through on our program of the Whistle Time, with Owen Zaga together with Linda Susie from 2 to 3 p.m. That is where I want to ask you who love sports to also keep watching. Definitely they will be here to sort of let you know of that. And that brings us to the end of today's discussions. As I want to thank you so much, you who watched us right from the time of at the beginning of the show, and also at the beginning of the week as well. And we want to say thank you so much. We also really appreciative of you, and we shall be coming back until Monday. For now, we are leaving the stations that is solely for the news bulletin in Lubarati with Fete Manuel, who will be coming shortly. For now, have yourselves a good day until